Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. Let's get started with the story of the week. So the Olympics are starting in Paris next week, and if we're reading this story correctly, it looks like this 30-year-old from Australia, he's set to go to the Olympics in Paris, but a few weeks ago, he broke his finger, so that therefore would have made him ineligible to compete next week because he would have had it in a cast and he would have needed it to heal. So he chose to take rather extreme measures and get it amputated. I actually did not believe this story at first because the first time I read it, it was on the Daily Mail, which is always like hit or miss as far as the information goes. So I did look it up on a couple more legit news sources, and I found this to be true. And I do think it is really outrageous, but at the same time, you compete essentially your whole life to do something in the Olympics, and for it to not go your way last minute, and this could be a huge thing for his career or just something he wants to accomplish, like, I kind of don't blame him. Yeah, and he did say he took, like, the rest of his life into consideration when making the decision to do it, but it's just kind of nuts. And then I was like, well, what sport is he playing? It looks like he plays field hockey, so I guess with all your other fingers, you'd still be able to grip the stick properly, so I don't think this decision was taken lightly. Yeah, and we know that there is this whole population of people that get elective amputations just because they feel like a part of their body doesn't belong to them or anything. So he had a surgeon, which honestly, I was thinking about this because I think if you're a regular person and you think you broke your finger, you just wouldn't even think there was any other option. And somebody said to him, well, there is one more thing we could do. And I don't know. I just think there's certain things in life that like nobody in the world gets to accomplish except a rare few of people. And if you've made it all the way to that point, it is extreme, but I feel like it's kind of worth it. Yeah, and he's been in the Olympics before. I believe the last time he went was when it was in Japan, if I'm remembering correctly, and his team won the silver medal. So like, he wants to go for gold, you know. It is, in my opinion, a really extreme decision, but I also understand prepping your entire life for these moments, and you're not going to be able to do it till you're like 70 years old, right? So you want to try, and they're only every 4 years. So you want to try to get it in, and to have your finger break only a couple weeks before to potentially make you ineligible. It's kind of a wild situation, the entire thing, but interesting choice. So there's been a couple times working in pathology that I've gotten, specifically, I remember that I got a foot one time and it just said painful foot. And it was a completely normal looking foot. Like there was no gangrene, there was no previous amputations, nothing looked wrong with it. And I was so amazed by that someone felt that they were in that much pain that they were going to get their foot cut off. But then when Pop-Up was going through all that pain with his foot, I actually recommended to him, I was like, dude, why don't you just get your foot cut off and get a prosthetic, because at least you'll be able to walk. Because at that time, remember, they were saying that this was before he found the good surgeon, that they were like, there's nothing we can do for you. And I was like, get your foot cut off, dude. Like you'll have a better quality of life. So I know people do it, and I'm not opposed to it in some circumstances. Well, also for people that don't know you personally, like we nickname you Dr. Death in our family because you're just always giving us the most ridiculous solutions for things. So when you suggested that Pop cut his foot off, everybody's like, oh, okay, he'll just cut his foot off. But you're trying to come with this reasonable background and history. 100%. You could look at me and think I'm insane for saying that, but he would get the, let's say, for example, he couldn't walk, okay? And he feels perfectly healthy. Was he in his early 70s when this happened? So he was just sitting on the couch all day. And his mother lived to be 99 years old. So like he still has a lot of life in him potentially left, right? And I'm thinking, okay, if you get this amputation within a month, you'll be completely healed from it. You get fitted for a prosthetic foot, and then you'll be able to walk. I don't think that that's outrageous at all. I know that it sounds drastic, but the other alternative was him sitting in a couch and like rotting to death.
thank God he found a surgeon that figured out what the problem was and was able to fix it. And now he still is having difficulty walking, but at least he could get around a little bit more without being in like excruciating pain.
Yeah, I get
He
that.
said, listen what he said to me. He said to me, and I'll never forget this. He said, Cole, I feel like I have a toothache all the time. Like that really horrible pain that's just there all the time, no matter what medicine he took, whatever it was. And my dad has a history of rheumatoid arthritis. He was a mechanic his entire life. Like he was hard on his body. So there's just multiple things going on there. But think about how bad it sucks when your tooth hurts. Do you want to feel like that? No. What do? They take it out, right?
Yeah.
Take out your foot.
Yeah, I mean, I understand with your reasoning now, but at the time it just seemed like it totally came out of nowhere. So everybody was like, "What are you even talking about?" But when you put it in perspective and explain these other stories, then it makes more sense.
All right, let's talk about celebrity news.
So we reported on our episode on Tuesday that Shannon Doherty had died from her cancer, but she did this kind of amazing thing where she left a list of people she didn't want at her funeral. I feel like we might have touched on this before. She had talked about it on her podcast, but it seems like it's been confirmed that this was a real thing.
It's kind of genius, actually, and her reasoning was that a bunch of people are going to show up because they feel like it's the politically correct thing to do, and they don't really want to be there, and they're going to be like, thank God this bitch is dead under their breath. And she really just wants to have people at her funeral that are like genuinely upset and celebrate, about her death and celebrating her life. So I don't think that this is bad at all. And it's actually nice to put those people on your list because they don't really want to go either,
Yeah, totally.
So it just works out for everyone, I think.
Yeah, she's saying, quote, they'll show up because it's the politically correct thing to do and they don't want to look bad, so I kind of want to take the pressure off them, which, like you said, it's good for them because then they don't have to go. There's also this weird thing I don't know if we should talk about when, like, somebody dies and they're a horrible person, just all of a sudden they're the most amazing person you ever knew.
Yeah, and well, that happens all the time.
I know, and it's like okay to not like somebody just because they died. Can we just accept that that's okay?
Yeah, that they just were a terrible person.
Like
and
some
whatever.
people have, family members. Like somebody I know had like an absolutely horrible grandmother. She was awful to all of them. Nobody liked her, and then she died, and all of a sudden their mom was like, wow, she was amazing. And they're like, you hated her your whole life. What are you even talking about?
Well, didn't we talk about that at some point about people that are, remember this person died and the obituary was just kind of like,
oh, honest?
She like left our family and she was a terrible person kind of thing. And people were all like, you can't put that in someone's obituary. And it's like, no, just because she's dead doesn't mean anything, right?
Exactly. That's how I feel about it. So I don't know. But
well, also they were talking about in one of these articles that she had plans for her after she died for her body, so she didn't want to be buried and she wanted to be cremated.
Yeah, so she wanted her ashes mixed with her dog's and her dad's, and then she gave her friend permission to wear her ashes in a necklace because she had done that with her father's ashes. I actually just wrote a Gross Room article about unique things people have done with ashes, but my article stemmed from when we were at CrimeCon. We had a story about a woman who was eating her grandmother's ashes and said it made her feel closer to her grandmother than ever. And then there was also that like famous episode of My Strange Addiction where that lady was eating her husband's ashes. So it just kind of got me thinking about other cool things people could, well, I wouldn't say eating ashes is cool per se, but other unique or unusual things people do with ashes. But when are you going to post that? Because it's ready to go. So.
Probably next week, but I just wanted to say this because I don't think you and I have talked about this. Do you know that we both mutually know someone that has eaten their husband's ashes?
No.
Yeah, we do.
Can you give me hints or will you just tell me later?
No, I'll tell you later. But
family or friend?
It's a friend of the family. Gabe sent me an article. I don't know why he just came across that article the other day about the My Strange Addiction person, or it was like one of those things on Instagram that he sends me 5,000 videos a day. So it was probably one of them. But in that video or whatever it was that he sent me, it was saying that this woman was eating her husband's ashes and he sent it to me. And I was just like, dude, like we know somebody that actually did that. So it's really interesting.
Well, I'll be looking forward to our post-recording
You
chat.
won't when I tell you, you like literally will not be shocked. You'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
get on to Jeff Bridges though.
All right, so he was filming the first season of the show The Old Man, which is seriously such an incredible show.
So why don't you talk about who, because I don't know that everybody knows who Jeff Bridges is off the top of their...
I mean, he's this huge Hollywood actor. He's most famous for being in The Big Lebowski. So he's in a million I mean, he has to be most famous for being in that movie, but
yeah,
he's like in so much
really
stuff.
Cool. He's really cool.
He's
like
the coolest
he seems
dude
like
ever.
You'd want to hang out with him.
He's the dude. So actually, my friend Rachel's cousin, I think it was her cousin, he was like a Jeff Bridges impersonator, and he dressed like the dude and married them that way at their wedding.
Oh my God,
that's
so
amazing.
Funny.
So in 2020, he was filming The Old Man, so that's a really amazing show. He's like a former CIA agent. It's just, the show is so incredible. I just heard yesterday the second season's coming out in September, so I'm really looking forward to that. But he does a lot of fight scenes in this movie, and he was working out a lot to prepare for it. So he said during a normal workout, when he was in the middle of filming it, he felt like something was in his stomach, almost like a bone was in there or like puncturing him, but it didn't hurt. So, of course, he tells his wife, and she's like, dude, you got to get this checked out, right? Because I just feel like if it was a typical situation, it would get blown off if a wife was not consulted in this.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with an older man. So he also said around this time, his skin was feeling itchy, which he thought he just had dry skin. He was having night sweats, but it was the summertime, so he just didn't really think about it. But it turns out that he had a 9 by 12 inch tumor in his stomach, and he had been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
12 inches for a tumor is huge. It's the diameter of a ruler, right?
Yeah.
Like think about that being in your abdomen. So I'm actually kind of surprised that was the first time he had any symptoms or was aware of that thing even being there. But so lymphoma arises from cells called lymphocytes. They're white blood cells that are part of our immune system. And you've probably heard of lymph nodes, right? But they're all over your body. So you have lymph nodes all over your body, and lymphocytes live inside of those lymph nodes. But they also live in most of your organs as well, because they're helping your immune system throughout your entire body. So they live inside of your intestines, they live in your spleen, they live in your tonsils. They're all over the place because your immune system works together with all of your organs. So any place that you normally have lymphocytes hanging out, you can get lymphoma because they can turn to cancer. And he has it in the abdomen. So it could have been coming from a lymph node, but it also could have been coming from his GI tract somewhere. And yeah, so they don't always cut them out. Sometimes they'll cut them out if it's like I've gotten small bowel resections, for example, because the tumor was so big that the bowel couldn't move anymore and poop couldn't get through anymore, so they had to cut it out because it was obstructing. But a lot of the times they just give people treatment like chemotherapy, radiation. There's all these different kinds of treatments people can get. And Jeff Bridges actually got chemotherapy. And when you get chemotherapy, that suppresses your immune system and you're considered immunosuppressed. And then because of that, he was more prone to get COVID. And then he got really sick when he did get COVID.
So is it typical that something like that wouldn't be painful?
Well, if it's just there and it's not bothering anything, I mean, there's space in your abdomen. Unlike we were talking about a couple weeks ago, I don't remember what case it was, but remember we were talking about like if your brain gets a brain bleed in it. Actually, I was talking about this in a post in the grocery room about a kid. It was a kid that was not wearing a bike helmet, a 10-year-old that fell and hit his head and died. So you have your brain inside of your skull, and if it swells up or blood accumulates inside of your skull, there's nowhere for your brain to really move and stretch. And then it starts to herniate or it starts to push down into the spinal canal, actually, and it can compress your respiratory centers and it could cause you to die. And In the abdomen, it's a little bit different because there's a lot of space for things to grow and you wouldn't even know it. Think about just a woman getting pregnant and you could have that huge uterus with a baby inside and like all your organs still function properly. So yeah, he had it and he felt it. That's why when you go to the doctor, they like push on your belly because they want to see if they can feel anything that shouldn't be there through your belly.
Yeah. So
including like if you're constipated and stuff, they could tell if your colon's really hard and filled with poop, but they do that just to make sure. Because if he had went to the doctor and had his abdomen palpated, the doctor would have felt that maybe much earlier.
yeah, it was kind of crazy because he was saying during their fight scenes, like they were mimicking him getting punched in the stomach and stuff. And he just was like, I had no idea. So it's just kind of crazy. But he said the past is a past and he doesn't think about it much because he's, recovering from everything that went down. So I guess he just wants to move on and not like harp on it the rest of his life. So
yeah, and it's good that he's sharing it because that's the thing with night sweats. That's a big symptom of lymphoma. But when for like me, for example, when you're a woman and you're going through this like perimenopausal hell, you get night sweats all the time. So it's hard for women, but for men, especially if that's happening, it seems like such a benign thing, but it's something you should always definitely get checked out because it's not part of the normal physiology, especially for a guy that's like in his 70s.
yeah, totally.
All right, let's get on to freak accidents.
So a 15-year-old boy was just in his backyard washing down a cart and the water hit the wheel, which I'm sure if you're just washing anything off, you don't think anything of it. So the power washer hits this wheel and debris from it flew up, hit him in the head. He now has brain injuries to the head. It's a whole mess.
Yeah, I think that when children really probably shouldn't be operating things like that. It seems innocent because it's just like, oh, it's a hose. It's just a high power hose. But those things are dangerous. They can cause so many accidents, and you're really supposed to wear eye protection when you use them because that is they say that a couple people a year go blind because of like a guy will be like power washing the sidewalk and hit a pebble, and then the pebble will fly up and hit you in the face. And that's what happened in this case. The wheel got hit by the power washer and the wheel kind of broke because it was probably plastic or something like that or something of a lightweight material. And it punctured through his orbit, actually. So it did go through his eye and then it got into his brain. If he was wearing protective eye equipment, I'm not sure the power of this, but it very well could have saved him from this injury if he was wearing protective goggles. Other accidents that could happen are, so the water comes out so forcefully that if it hits your foot especially is at risk. If it hits that, it could rip the skin or cause laceration because it's just like a blunt trauma to the skin. And then you could introduce all of that nasty water or that you're cleaning with. So you could get dirt, bacteria, and stuff in those wounds deep because of how forceful the power washer is. Electrocution injuries, people using ones that are gas powered have had problems with fumes, like doing something in an area that wasn't well ventilated. They're not really something that a child should be using, at least unattended.
Yeah, so it sucks because his mom like just looked out the window, the back of their house, and saw him laying there unconscious. He had to be airlifted to a children's hospital, and now he is showing good signs of recovery, but it wasn't looking good the first day it happened, and they were really scared, and they project he's going to be in the hospital for a couple months while he recovers from this. It's just a horrible situation.
Yeah, I feel really bad for this because I always think about cases like, because my brother he was just one of those kids that would have been using a power washer when he was 15 years old. Like he just was very mechanical, into everything, knew how to do things. And you just have to take into consideration that even like you got Ricky a power washer for Christmas, right? That's still sitting in the box at your house.
Seriously.
If he ever decides to take it out of the box and actually use it, he really should be wearing a pair of goggles at least with it.
He is pretty...
You don't think about it.
Shockingly, he's pretty good about wearing goggles when he's like out there with the weed whacker and stuff, so I'm pretty sure he would be on top of it with that. Everything else, he's just kind of like, I'll be fine. So that is unusual behavior for him.
The biggest struggle we have to have is him just opening that box.
Yeah, seriously. Maybe after we record, I'll just do it and like put a little bow on it right when he walks in the front door when he gets home from work later today. Be like, please go outside and take care of business.
Dude, the heat wave broke last night. I was just outside watering the flowers, and it's so much more pleasant to be outside today, so there's really no excuse now.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm going to do exactly what I just said and just open it and have it ready to go. And be like,
yeah,
here's
because
a little
before
list.
you know it, he'll be like, oh, it's too cold to do it now.
Well, I bought it for him for Christmas, and then it was too cold, and then we were like genuinely busy every single weekend, or it was getting dark out early, right? And then now he has no excuse.
I hear excuses, lots of excuses.
Exactly. All right, so this next one, this mother was just, cleaning her shed out. It's a total normal activity. She started sweeping away at these spider webs, and she felt a bite near her eye. And then within 24 hours, her whole body swelled up. She had this rash. It turns out that she hit this web just filled with these brown recluse spiders, which are the most deadly spiders. And she's not doing.
I don't know if they're the most deadly spiders.
No,
maybe around here they're nasty, but
not
there's
the
some
most deadly ever. But they're one of the most deadly.
Yeah,
spiders.
they for in America for sure. They usually are present in the southern / central United States. So I know that I feel like there's been reports that some have been found in Pennsylvania, but not. It's not really as common as you would see in Florida. Where was she from? North Carolina or something, or Georgia?
Yeah, somewhere in the South.
Yeah, somewhere in the South. But you could identify them because the marking on their back looks like a violin. So if you ever see them, or if you're like my kids and you see any spider-looking thing, scream as if there's a pedophile chasing you down the street or something. I don't know. My kids will be flipping out so bad, and then I get my fight or flight response, and I go over to check on them, and they're like, "There's a spider," and I look over, and it's just one of those little tiny ones that's not even the size of your pinky fingernail. You're just like, really, dude, that was necessary for that?
Listen, I was really thinking about this because I have a lot of spiders on my property, and they get in my house, and I don't know the difference between spiders.
Well, you don't need to worry about that here because there's not really issues with that. You would know if you saw it. They're big and they have a violin on their back. Anyway.
Yeah, but I wouldn't know to look for that. I wouldn't even know that was a type of spider that was deadly,
But if you're from down there, it's a thing.
I don't know. I just think it could happen so
you wouldn't
easily.
know what an alligator is because you wouldn't see one ever in your woods, but you would know about it if you lived down there to stay away from them.
You don't know
what
that.
I mean?
People bring them up here all the time. They're always finding gators in people's houses in the city.
Well, that's another story for a different day. But so when you get bit by one of these things, sometimes you don't even know. It could take a whole entire day before you even realize that you got bit. And the most common reaction is that you get a blister and a painful reaction at the bite site. And then that wound could then in turn get very necrotic, or the skin around it could become dead. It's a tissue reaction to the venom. And you should look up some of these pictures. I'm sure I have done stories of it in the gross room, actually, because I've had people actually send me cases of this. These can be really nasty looking skin infections to the point where people have to go and get the dead tissue surgically removed and stuff, and it could look really gnarly. But in this case, she had a delayed reaction to this venom, and she had something called hemolytic anemia, which is when your body starts lysing or killing your red blood cells, which is really, really bad because you need your red blood cells to bring oxygen to your organs. And that's why she got this crazy looking rash. We can probably show a picture of the rash from the article because that would just be scary in itself to see that. And she really could have died from this. People haven't been known to die from a spider bite from this if they have one of these more serious reactions.
Yeah, I mean, the pictures are crazy. Her entire face is swollen. She has this gnarly rash on her body. I can't even imagine being in this position. and it's scary.
What's interesting about getting these spider bites is that if you go to the hospital, they don't have a blood test they can give you to be like, yeah, you got bit by this spider. They just, it's all about like, well, what were you doing a couple days ago, or what were you doing yesterday? And it's about clinical history, and then also how it presents. So we just, one of our friends that's a fireman was just in Florida and thought that he had a spider bite, and he got a severe reaction to it. But you just don't really ever know unless you physically saw it. The weirdest part is that they're like, if you get bit by a spider, you should always take its body with you to the hospital. And I'm like,
how often do you have the body of the spider?
I never, right? Imagine trying. I guess if it's on your arm and you smack it and you end up killing it or something. But
do you ever have? I had this happen to me twice. I got like a spider bite on my thigh, and then a couple of days later, it started getting bigger to the point I had to go to the doctor, and then they have to draw a Sharpie around it, and they're like, if it goes beyond the Sharpie, you have to go to the hospital.
Yeah,
that's always scary.
Yeah, it is, but we don't really have to worry about that here. It's just when we go on vacation. But it's weird. Like, I've walked through the woods and stuff in Florida on like hikes, and you just don't even think about it, and you just kind of have to hope it doesn't happen to you. And it doesn't happen to everyone that gets bit that this necessarily happens. You know what I mean? It's kind of a rare thing, but
yeah,
it's good to know the symptoms, and it is scary to think about it for sure.
All right, so in another amusement park incident, there was another swing ride accident in Canada. So a 17-year-old girl was on one of those, the traditional swings that are at every amusement park.
I just hate those rides. I hate them.
Yeah, but this wasn't even one of those extreme ones. It's like one, they advertise this ride as a family-friendly ride that children could go on, like everybody could go on. It just lifts you up and swings you lightly around. But somehow this 17-year-old fell 30 to 40 feet out of the ride when it was in motion.
Yeah. And she's in critical condition. I haven't seen, I feel like we first found this article like 5 days ago. There's been no updates as far as what happened with her.
Yeah,
and what happened on the ride. Did something malfunction? Did she unhook the thing?
Well, I feel like it's leaning towards she unhooked it, because the latest update I found was that the police don't believe there's any reason to investigate it. So, like, they're not looking into what happened on the ride. They're not seeing if it was any, like somebody pushed her out or anything. So I'm thinking...
So they're thinking that maybe she intentionally did it?
I don't know for sure. That was the feeling I was getting from the one article I was reading, that they don't think there was any, like, criminal thing going on, or that the ride malfunctioned.
Oh.
And when you're in those seats, I feel like you have to... I don't even know if... I'm thinking of the ones I've been on, and I don't even know how you would fall out even if the ride did malfunction. You know what I mean? Unless the... the story we talked about last week? Like, the whole thing tipped over, which understood why people got hurt on that.
Yeah, but so I just put the kids in one a couple, like 2 weeks ago maybe, and there's like this chain that goes in between your legs, and then a chain that kind of goes across.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that if the chain wasn't there, would you could probably slip off of it, unless the way that it is that you just wouldn't if you were holding on, just because, when you go on those stupid ski lift things, and like some of them don't even have, well, back in the day they did. Now they put a bar, but they didn't even have like a bar over your waist.
Yeah,
and you're going really high up, but just the way it's tilted and everything, like you can't really fall out of it unless you try, kind of.
Well, this is another article I wrote in the Gross Room, actually, because I went to the Smoky Mountains for my honeymoon, and 2 weeks before we went, somebody was on one of those ski lifts, and if the cable was wobbling or something and you weren't paying attention or weren't holding on, like, yes, you could fall out, but this woman jumped out to kill herself. So I don't know what was going on. I'm thinking, like you're saying, even if the chain was broken, I feel like she was old enough to know to hold on, and the ride's not going like that fast that you would just fall. But I don't really know. I'm thinking because they're not investigating it further that maybe they already know the answer, and it's just
Yeah.
Nothing like that. And I didn't read anywhere that the ride was closed down. Like, to me, that would indicate that there was malfunction if the ride was shut down.
Yeah, true. Hey guys, this is one of the rare times a year that we have the Gross Room on sale for only $20 for the entire year of Gross, which is less than 10 cents a day. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, so you can visit thegrossroom.com now through Monday, July 22nd to sign up for $20.
And there you'll have access to thousands of videos, articles, photos that we've been doing since, November 2019?
Yeah, coming up on 5 years of posts.
Yeah, so you'll have access to all that. And a lot of our posts have audio. We have podcast episodes from before we started Mother Knows Death that you guys can listen back to. So it's just a great community of people. You should really check it out. All right, let's get started with true crime.
So this really scary thing happened in November. The FBI had uncovered a plot by a neo-Nazi group to have somebody dressed as Santa hand out poisoned candy to racial minorities and Jewish children in New York City. And one of the weirdest parts of this is it was going to take place on New Year's Eve last year.
So you're going to have someone, this is why these people from other countries that are planning some kind of cultural thing like this, like they need to get their shit together. You're going to have a guy dressed like Santa Claus on New Year's Eve trying to give children candy.
Yeah.
Especially Jewish children that don't even believe in Santa and don't do Santa anyway.
Yeah,
like
the entire
idiot.
The entire plot is totally idiotic. The guy planning this was 20 years old. He was from the country of Georgia. He thought he was talking to a prospect that was going to join this cult he's in, which they're referring to in this case as the maniac murder cult. But the prospect ended up being an undercover FBI agent who was just keeping tabs on everything he was saying and getting ready to arrest him at any moment.
I mean, the whole thought of it still is I'm not sure how probable it would have happened if he was able to pull this off, just because of people would have been skeptical about this guy, whatever. But just to think about that is, I mean, this is why you shouldn't take candy from strangers, right? It's because you don't know what shady shit's going on in the background.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the weird parts of this plan was he was going to have this FBI agent put stockings full of candy in apartment buildings. And I was thinking, that's kind of a stupid move, but also I could totally see at Christmas time, you might go to the doctor's office or you're walking around or you're in the lobby of your apartment building and you might think your landlord put it out just as a nice gesture. So you aren't really knowing it's from a stranger per se. It's in an enclosed building, so...
This reminds me of some, the movie The Witches.
Yeah.
Seriously, oh, we're going to poison all of this chocolate and give it to all the children to kill them.
Yeah, so also in their communications, he was giving this guy, detailed instructions on how to execute this. He was okay, purchase the candy in cash, and then there's all these techniques to poison it, and then after you do it, burn the Santa costume. They're not going to figure out who did it, right?
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Moron.
The whole thing is just so stupid, but it's good that this guy got arrested. So why it's relevant now is he's just been indicted by a grand jury on 4 charges of hate crimes and, trying to plan these mass casualty attacks. He was also trying to plan bombings, arsons, more poisonings, some stuff that he was telling the FBI agent was connected to ISIS. It's just good that this guy is now in custody.
Yes.
It's always scary to think about. So, in the Philippines, a couple was having sex, and during the actions, the husband moaned another woman's name. So, we all know that's no good. So, they finished their business, and the wife waits for him to go to sleep, and then as he's sleeping, she goes in the kitchen, grabs a 10-inch blade, and cuts his penis off.
We've heard this story many of times, especially in the Gross Room. If you actually search penis amputation, there's multiple cases of this. The most famous, of course, is John Wayne Bobbitt, which we did a whole high-profile death dissection on that, and he was able to have his penis reattached. But in this case, this guy could not have his penis reattached.
And you're leaving out the weirdest part, which is after they reattached his penis, he had a pretty lucrative porn career for a while. called
Oh, I thought you meant about this case, because this woman in this case that cut off her husband's penis, she said that she knew she said she was drinking alcohol, but she knew what she was doing. But really the best part of it is her mugshot. She's holding up, the paper that says her number and I guess her crime, which says mutilation. And then underneath of it, you could see her face is blurred out, but she's wearing pink Mickey Mouse pajamas.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a wild mugshot, but I also feel her because she's like, I know what I was doing, but he needs to take accountability too because he was cheating on me. And I guess the name he moaned was his mistress's name. And it seemed like the wife was trying to get him in trouble for adultery. I don't know if that's like an actual crime in some other countries, but she's going to go to jail for this, for mutilation now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like, I understand, like, that's enraging, but you don't really have the right to, like...
Yeah, you can't be cutting people's body parts off, like...
Or just, not even that, just, like, hurting anyone because you don't like something they did. Unless it's, like, if that was, like, he was raping a child, like, cut his penis off 20 times, I don't care, but, like...
Well, that was the argument
when you're adults.
That was the argument for Lorena Bobbitt, though, because she was claiming marital rape, which is what caused her to do it, to John Wayne Bobbitt. So that was a really interesting defense. So, I don't know.
Well, she got out of it, though, right?
Yeah.
Did she serve jail time? I don't think so.
I don't remember. I don't think she did.
I don't remember either. That was like, when did we write it? Oh, that was our Valentine's Day special.
Yeah.
That's how the Gross Room is. We do specials, like, for Thanksgiving, we did a special on cannibalism. We just do things that are really, up our alley, but really interesting stories. All right, let's get on to medical news.
A new study is linking poop frequency to long-term health, and they have come up with something called the Goldilocks zone, which is pooping the perfect amount of times a day.
Not too much, not too little, just right. So they've made a chart of what they consider to be the poop schedule of people. Number 1, you would be considered constipated if you had 1 to 2 bowel movements a week. And then number 2 is considered low to normal. That's 3 to 6 bowel movements a week. Then there's high, which is 1 to 3 a day. And then there's diarrhea. What zone are you in, Maria?
Oh, God. I mean, I'm definitely, like, not in the normal zone. I think
I'm low normal most of the time.
Yeah, low normal's like borderline constipated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm there.
I'm like low normal to normal. But this is something interesting. Again, I'm going to bring up my dad, mostly because he doesn't listen to this, so I could say whatever I want. And hopefully my mom won't tell. My dad, I've said this like my whole life. When I lived with him and when I was younger and stuff, it is amazing to me. Like, he used to wake up every day, go to work, do whatever, but he pooped the same time. Every single morning he pooped at the same time, and then he'd come to work and come home from work, have a shower, no matter what time it was, and then he would poop every day, twice a day. Like, never hearing him complain that he couldn't go, never hearing him complain that he had diarrhea. It was just like twice a day, every day, same exact time. Like, it's a skill to do that, I'm telling you.
Well, that's how my husband is. So, like, no matter what, he could always go. I'm, like, kind of jealous of it because I just never have had regularity like that. I would say I was definitely, like, not in a good place even as early as 2 months ago. But I've been, changing a lot of my health habits and drinking a lot of water, which was my number one problem. And I've been eating a lot healthier and taking more supplements. So that's been helping me a lot. But beforehand, I was definitely not in a normal zone.
So they're saying that the Goldilocks, the best zone to be in, is actually the high normal one, which is going 1 to 3 times a day. And it's pretty cool, the reasoning that they have behind this. So they're saying that the longer that poop sits inside of your body, that the microbes or the bacteria in your body can break it down. And then once they break it down, it releases toxins into your bloodstream, which they're really finding is responsible for chronic illness. So this study is really instrumental in that, finding how could we try to heal people. There's multiple different aspects of it, but one of it is, like, it seems to be if you're just going to the bathroom regularly, very almost every day, or definitely every day, if not twice a day, that you're going to have a decreased risk of having chronic disease, which is kind of amazing, because that's something that people can try to work on to help. This is all part of this leaky gut and everything like that. So it's really interesting research.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about this special little thing called Toe-Besity.
I sent this to Gabe. Like me and Gabe were like laying in bed last night, and I was looking for some last minute articles for today's episode, and you know, because Gabe like always makes fun of my toe because it like sticks up, and he will just be sitting there talking, and he'll like take a picture of my toe and send it to me or something. He just like always messes with me. So I sent this to him. I was like, yo, people are getting cosmetic surgery on their toes. How outrageous is that? I never even thought about it.
I've never thought about it either. I'm like, you know, this conversation is coming up is like, how far are we going to go with extreme plastic surgeries, right? And getting your toes done is definitely one of them. I mean, some people were getting them done for legitimate reasons, like hammer toe or something along those lines. But to get them done because you aesthetically don't like how they look it's very bizarre to me, unless you're like on OnlyFans making a ton of money off your feed and you could prove
it's bizarre, but especially if, I mean, listen, I have a rule that I don't even think men should ever let their feet out unless they're unless
agree
they're
with
like
this.
at the pool or the beach. Like, I don't want to see a dude wearing flip-flops. It's so gross. I hate it.
I was at a coffee shop recently having like the best day ever. I'm like, I'm going to go treat myself and go to the coffee shop I really like. And as I was waiting in line, this guy is staring at me, giving me dirty looks for like what reason, right? And I look down and he's wearing flip-flops and he has like toe fungus. And I texted Ricky and said, I just saw something that should be illegal. A man's foot exposed. And on top of it, he's judging me for what I look like.
They're always like, their toes are way too hairy. I don't want to see it. They always have weird tan lines because they wear socks all the time. So it's like they have these really white feet and like tan legs.
Honestly, I don't want to see anybody's feet. I think feet are disgusting.
They don't cut their toenails right. They don't. Yeah. There's just like, they have calluses. There's just like, there's way too many. I have seen a couple men that like dress really nice and they're wearing like really nice sandals or whatever, but like that is not the norm. So let's just ban it altogether. I just don't want to look at it anymore. And for women that wear shoes, right? And there's so many cute sandals and stuff. Some women have very like, their toes are a little aggressive. So I could see that people are insecure about it. I mean, I feel like my feet are not normal, like the normal classic foot, but I've kind of just accepted that that's how it is.
Yeah, and I've noticed.
But I could see that people get, you know.
I've noticed too, like, Lillian is gonna have the same exact foot as you. Like, it's so bizarre with kids and how genetics work. Like, if I look at like certain like features on her, like you guys have the same exact weird shaped foot.
So does actually Lillian's foot looks more like Gabe's because she's got that weird long toe that I don't have, but Lulu does, and Lulu has my turned up foot.
Oh, weird.
It is weird, but what's actually funny though is like when Lucia was born, her two big toes don't match, and one of them she probably got smushed inside a little bit or something when she was forming, but one of her toenails. Like, this might actually become an issue for her because it's kind of been an issue throughout her childhood. One of her toenails is, like, if you look at the side profile of your toenail, like, one is kind of a little, like, raised arch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lucia's is, like, on the one toe is like, a semicircle. So those two edges of her toenails are, like, digging into the top of her toe so much. So it cosmetically doesn't look the same as the other one, but it causes her problems because it's growing and like digging into the sides of her big toe.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and whatever, but it's, this surgery they're saying cost anywhere from hundreds to thousands of dollars. And this one guy in the article said that he's been doing it for like 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, again, do whatever you want with your body, but like, toe surgery is, and they're saying it's all the same. It's the same risk factors as getting any other surgery, right? Like,
Yeah.
is it really worth it when you could just wear a closed-toed shoe? I just don't know.
I don't know.
All right, so this next story. So I heard this joke recently. I believe it was from Hannah Berner. She was saying that
Who's Hannah Berner?
she's this comedian. She just had a really awesome stand-up special on Netflix, but she was also on a Bravo show called Summer House. So she had this really awesome joke. I'm totally going to botch it, but the gist of it was when men get vasectomies, they like roll out the red carpet. They're like, "Are you okay, baby? What do you need? Blah, blah, blah." But when women get IUDs, they don't tell you how painful it is. They just jam it right up you and they just expect you to go along with your day.
So I've been very outspoken that I hate IUDs. And the reason that I could say that is, number one, because I worked in surgical pathology for most of my adult life and saw how many people have problems with them. And then number two, I had one myself and had problems with it. So I was dating Gabe at the time when I went to go get mine in, and I just go there and I didn't even think about it. Just like this comedian said, like, it was just kind of like, "Oh, you want to come in and get your IUD today? Okay." And I went in and got it. And this was before I had the 2 other kids, but I had already previously given vaginal childbirth, even though you were already like 15 years old probably at the time. So it was a long time ago. And she inserted that IUD, and I went out into the hallway when I was leaving. And I seriously started blacking out because I was in so much pain. And that never happens to me. Like, I've given birth naturally 3 times now, tattoos all over my body. And I went out in the hallway and I called Gabe and I was like, "Dude, you need to come pick me up because like, I seriously think that I'm going to pass out." It was so like, what the fuck? It just was, I can't explain to you like how it hurt so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had one, but that's kind of the general feeling I've gotten from everybody I know that has had one, that it's a horrible pain.
Well, so your cervix for your uterus is like clenched tight, right? Because you don't want bacteria and stuff to go up inside your uterus because that would be really bad. So it's closed really, really tight. And it's really only meant to open up to let a baby come out, right?
Yeah.
So you're going up the wrong way and you're forcing it open, and it's a very tight organ. It just doesn't want to open easily, and you're forcing something up there. So even though it's a very small, skinny thing they're sticking up there, they have to kind of stick tools up there to stretch it out in order to fit the IUD up there. And there's so many nerves down there and stuff, and it's just like it causes a shit ton of pain. And I'm actually happy that all these women are making these TikTok videos about it, because it's exactly what you say. Like, if a dude needs to get anything, it's just like, oh, like women just in general are constantly put in so much. Just even the whole procedure of just getting a pap smear is just humiliating, uncomfortable. Like, deal with it.
Well,
now, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
put your butt down.
So now they're finally allowing women to be sedated during this procedure.
Well, I guess, like, in theory, they could do a local anesthetic, which is them putting like lidocaine into the cervix itself. But if they tell you, "Hey, we can stab your cervix with some lidocaine before we jam something up there," you're still going to have to feel the pain of somebody putting a needle into your cervix. Like, who wants that? No, nobody.
No.
It just further prolongs the agony of it. And so yeah, now they're going to offer sedation. And I think if you want it, get it. If you don't want it, because for me, it was kind of a pain in the ass. I had my car in the city. Gabe had to come pick me up. That like just never happens to me. You know that. Like,
yeah.
It never happens to me. And it would have been much easier if it was just scheduled like a colonoscopy and it was like, okay, she's going to go get this done or whatever. But then you have to think about all the other problems and complications that come along with that. Like, for the GYN's perspective, it's like it takes them 2 minutes to put in an IUD. Now they're going to have to hire somebody to do the anesthesia and then have to wait. It's going to take longer, less patients a day, blah, 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 plus all of the complications that come along with getting anesthesia.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. Like, the total lack of, like, letting people know how painful it's going to be is crazy to me.
It's the same thing with all of it. There's a lot of different procedures you can get done, especially in the GYN office, up into including abortions, that you can make the decision that you want to either have sedation or not. And I feel like it should be an option. Like, if they're ever forcefully opening your cervix, you should have the option. Because, like, for me, I feel like my cervix is, like, extra sensitive. It just hurts way too much. Like, I just don't like it. It was traumatized by you when I was a teenager or something. I don't know.
Well, you're welcome. All right. Disney has decided to remove a beloved character that's been there for 50 years because it potentially could offend alcoholics.
This country bear jamboree, of course, I sent this to Mom as soon as I saw this story because she, like, always loved that when we went to Disney World, and I do too. I brought the kids to it, and I think it's cool. I guess the guy's name Liver Lips, and he's do you recall, like, he kind of talks like he's drunk, I think, right? Or sings like he's drunk. He's, like, slow and, like, slurred.
Yeah.
Why now after 1971 is there?
They're trying to, like, Disney is on this whole path right now. I don't know the exact terminology, but basically they're trying to, like, remove any potential, like, characters or, like, you know how they just redid Splash Mountain because it was deemed offensive. So they're trying to do that. They're trying to go through and remove anything that could potentially offend any group of people.
So there's just not going to be a Disney World anymore because, like, everything's offensive to somebody these days.
Yeah,
I
mean,
I don't know the Liver Lips thing. Like, I've heard the saying before. I don't really know.
Well, they're saying it's considered derogatory and offensive because it's associated with alcohol abuse. So that, like, that terminology, I think if they really wanted to do it, it's like, obviously they want the press statement because they want the, like, kudos for being, you know, above all of us and doing the right thing, when it's like, if they were they're redoing the entire attraction, right? They're redoing all the songs. I think they renovated the theater. If you just took them away, I don't even think people would notice. I mean, some psycho Disney adults would notice, but, like, be like, we restructured the ride and he didn't fit in our new vision.
Well, yeah, they want attention for being, because they're just so great for doing the right thing. They need a pat on the back for that, I guess. But whatever, I don't really feel either way. I mean, if that's considered a, like, Liver Lips is considered a offensive term, so they're getting rid of that whole, like, animatronic thing. They're not using it anymore. They're just renaming it.
No, he's like gonna be a new character that's James Dean-esque. He's getting a makeover.
With the same lips, though?
I think they're taking, like, the same robot, but they're, like, giving it a facelift, basically.
Okay.
Whatever. I mean, you can make this argument.
People, listen,
on so many rides, like, they have.
People are fucking bored.
Yeah.
Like, just like, get a real problem.
I'm sure the entire attraction is, like, you know, there's this argument of, like, portraying, like, hillbilly culture, right? I'm sure that's offensive to people that grew up in the mountains and stuff.
I was literally just thinking that. Isn't there one that's just, like, a backwoods, like, not very smart, seems like inbred kind of character there? Yes, there is.
But you could argue, like, when you're even on
exactly.
It's a Small World, like, it's not, like, all the robots look exactly the same. Is it really, like, accurately reflecting all of these cultures? Like, no. So I don't know.
Well, let's go there one day and just start a bunch of shit.
Just
and
start
go
a ride.
Dissect every single ride and just be like, this is what's wrong with this. This is what's wrong with this.
I don't need to be kicked out of there because, I mean, my husband would love if I could never go to Disney again. He has
I don't
no
know
interest.
about that.
I
think he's starting to become. He's going to be like one of those people that, like, get lanyards with thousands of pins on them.
Yeah, you know what? He was really fighting going with us in California. And he was the whole time leading up, like, honestly being such a pain about the entire thing, like, threatening to not go. And then I knew he was going to get FOMO and, like, go, of course, because like there's no way he's gonna like not be with everybody all day while we're somewhere all
I feel
day.
it, and I purposely trapped him because I was like, oh, I bought you a ticket. You have to go because I just spent all this money, so you have to go.
And then the day after, he's sending me videos of people fishing and donuts I might like there and like all this stuff, and we're like, good, we got him hooked. So,
well, that actually was a very great day in Disney. In fact, I think that I almost feel like I would rather go take the flight all the way to California because there was, unless we just went on a freak day, that there was not that many people and it was a smaller scale and the weather was just so pleasant. It just was way better than being in Florida any day. I don't know if that was just like a rare occurrence.
I would go back, but I'm definitely not going to replace it with Disney World. Like, I like the whole thing of Disney World. And I'm sure people don't care about this, so let's move on.
Yeah, people want to hear other death news.
All right, so in Alabama, an inmate named Keith Gavin is set to be executed this week. And I guess as part of their state protocols, they do autopsies on all inmates that are executed. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do autopsies. There's a list of ones like people who die in a nursing home always get an autopsy or under suspicious circumstances, or not a nursing home, but like a state-run facility because they want to make sure that there's not elder abuse or anything like that. They have like lists of all different things. And one of them is people that are in prison. If you die in prison, you automatically get an autopsy. If you get executed, you automatically get an autopsy. So, but there's certain ways to bend the rules because people do have religious objections.
Yeah, so he is Muslim, so he was going against this, saying that it was a violation of his religious belief, so he ended up suing the state, and now they have given him permission to not, I don't know the right word to say this. He's not getting an autopsy when he gets executed, is the right way to say it.
Yeah, so he's Muslim, and I've had this situation come up a few times. And I've done autopsies on every single religion, including Muslim, because like we were talking about this in another episode, that if you're getting a hospital autopsy, your family is the one that gives their permission to do it. And in those cases, if you don't want to get an autopsy, you don't have to get an autopsy. But if you die, like you get murdered or you get in a car accident or something suspicious happens to you, and you go to the medical examiner or coroner's office, they're going to want to do an autopsy, and legally they have every right to do it, even if you object to it because of religious beliefs. So in this case, they have to do it, quote unquote, have to do it, because that's what they do when people die from execution. But they gave he didn't die yet unless he did like now, because it's either
today or tomorrow.
Today or tomorrow, right? But he's going to get lethal injection. Like there's no real reason to do an autopsy. Like you kind of know why he died because you seriously just killed him in front of people.
Yeah.
They just want to do it to check off the boxes and have the paperwork and everything. But technically, like they could grant him this because they're not really going to find anything at autopsy that they don't already know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've had cases where I've had people call about Jehovah's Witnesses and things like that. And I'll always just tell them that they should call their priest or pastor or whoever and get a recommendation from them, because we have medical articles written, but I don't really want to be the one that says that or not, like gives them that, oh yeah, we'll do it on you because your religion says this. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really know what it's called. The person that's like in charge of a Muslim, like, do they have like a priest person?
I don't know the proper terminology for it, so let's not botch it for everybody.
But that person had said in Islamic beliefs, autopsies are generally they're considered permissible mutation of the deceased, but in permissible cases that it's necessary and only to the extent required. So to me, that means now, like I'm saying, I wouldn't interpret that to a patient or patient's family, but to me that means that, let's say they die in a car accident and their chest goes into the steering wheel and there's like a high probability that they have broken ribs and they had a cardiac rupture or something. Then if we did that autopsy, if they really wanted to do it, you would say, okay, well, we're just like we think it's to the heart, so we're just going to look at his heart and not like be like less invasive as possible. And we do that with lots of autopsies because people in the hospital, even if they're Catholic, whatever, they'll just say like, okay, my dad had a heart attack. Could you just look at his heart? Like, don't cut up his whole body. I just want you to look at his heart. Don't look at the brain. Don't do this. Don't do that. They have all these different rules that they want to do. So yeah, in this case, and I have not done many autopsies on Muslim people, the same with Jewish people. They like to get buried very quickly after death. And sometimes it's just hard to even get it done within the 24 hours that they want somebody to be in the ground, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with it. I mean, in these cases, it's just like, you know how the person died. If that's like their last wish, and that, you know, the guy, on one hand, you're just like, okay, you killed, I think he killed like 1 or 2 people or something. And it's like, he's on death row. He shouldn't have any rights. But on the other hand, he had like a really shitty life growing up and like grew up into this life of crime and gangs and everything like that. Was like one kid from a family of 12, abuse, this, that, and the other. So it's just like, dude, the guy's getting put to death. He found religion later in life. He's like trying to be a better person. Like, just like give it to him. It's not worth the fight, you know?
Yeah. Okay, on to questions of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, we put a little story up, or a story with a little question box, so you guys can ask whatever you want. So first, what were your most effective study techniques when learning anatomy?
I really liked the anatomy coloring books, so I would color code everything. I would look at like Netter is my favorite anatomy. I would look at the illustration book, and then have a coloring book, and then also, you know, what I did in gross anatomy lab, and I would just, let's say, for example, I had like colored gel pens, and if I was doing nerves, like all of the nerves would be yellow. So any body system I did, every time I saw yellow, I knew that would be a nerve. I wrote the text in yellow, and then I colored it on the diagram in yellow. I'm very much a learner with the color coding. It helps me a lot because then when I'm taking the test, I kind of have like a photographic memory, and then that's for my particular way of learning.
Yeah, that's cool, because I think a lot of people would probably blow off, you know, a coloring book thinking it's like childish, but you don't realize how beneficial visually it could be.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my way of learning. And another thing is too, and this was one of the best parts of my Drexel program. We took a class, and my program director, Tina, taught this class, and it was medical terminology. And it was like the best class ever to take prior to even learning any of that stuff. Because if you know the root words of everything and what things mean, and this goes for pathology too, anatomy and pathology, it really helps you remember things better because you're like, oh, this was given this name because of this. There's certain things, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Dora Mater. Oh, that means tough mother. Oh, that makes sense. It's protecting the brain. That's how I remember that. Next one. There's so many of those throughout the body because, you know, they all originated in other languages, but it all was people dissecting bodies, you know, a long time ago and just saying, hey, this kind of looks like this. Let's call it this. It would be so much easier if it was English to just, or whatever your native language is to memorize it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Next, what do you think about, quote, seeing the light when you die?
I don't know. What do you think about it? I don't know.
I mean, have you ever heard from somebody that's had like a near-death experience about seeing
Oh yeah,
the
I've heard it a lot.
Like,
I've heard it a lot of times.
What medically could that possibly be?
I have no idea. I only see people when they're dead. I don't know what's happening. Like, it's just like their lights shutting off or something. It's probably like, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about it either. I've never really put much thought into it though, so I'm not sure. I'm just like, if you're dead, you're dead. So
yeah, and I mean that's my theory too. So it's hard. I think when I'd like to talk to someone that says that they saw this light that was a person that didn't really believe that anything was going to happen to your body after you die. And if this is something they saw and it like changed their mind to things.
Well,
Because I don't believe that. So if you know what I mean?
I wonder that too about people that say like their life flashed before their eyes, right? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean like every memory you had from the last however many years you were alive just fast forward played like a movie through your head? Or like, what does that mean exactly to people? It's a very interesting concept.
It is. And it's something that we could talk about all the time and nobody really, how would you just ever know? Like, you're just never going to know until you might die and there might be like this pearly gates heaven thing and everybody right now is looking down at us and like laughing that we're even talking about this, thinking that this isn't real. And then at the same token, there's all these people that believe in that and then they're going to die and that's it. So, I mean, it's like not, I don't even know if it's worth talking about because it's like, how would you ever know, even with all the advancements in technology and everything, like just how would you really ever know?
Believe in whatever you want to believe in to make it better for yourself. How about that?
Yes.
All right, last question is, do you have a dream event you want to do? I'm guessing with like work stuff.
No, I mean like CrimeCon was up there, so that was definitely cool. I mean, I'd like to just I'm so open to anything. I think I prefer probably to go on podcasts or something and do interviews rather than standing on stage in front of people. I don't really love standing on stage in front of people.
Yeah.
So I'm not like trying to do a lot of that because it's just not, it's like really out of my comfort zone. But at CrimeCon, I like it because I know everybody there is like interested.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's
I guess
just
anybody.
a different crowd because you know everybody's there for that topic.
Yeah. So and I really like doing that lecture because I was pretty certain that the stuff I was talking about was stuff that nobody else was really covering. Because I was only not only covering autopsy stuff, which I'm sure other people cover, but I was covering like, hey, what happens when you have all this true crime happen to you and you don't die? Like, what happens?
Yeah.
Because people sustain serious life-threatening injuries all the time and they leave the hospital alive. So that's a whole other topic. And I think when you go to an event like CrimeCon and all you're talking about is death, 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 you don't think about that, like, probably most victims of true crime actually don't die.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting perspective to have.
Yeah. So, but how about you?
I mean, my absolute dream is to be a bartender on Watch What Happens Live, whether that's to like promote. Usually it's people that have restaurants or have a book coming out or have podcasts. So I feel like we'd fit perfectly in that because you're also only shown for like 30 seconds, which would be the perfect amount of time. But I went to a taping in November of Watch What Happens Live and it was the coolest thing ever. So I would love if that was.
Do they ever have two bartenders?
Yeah, like
like me and you can do it and I'll just stand there because I don't have any idea what to actually do.
They don't even talk all the time. Andy Cohen will just be like, and we have Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Kane from Mother Knows Death podcast if we just wave. And then when they come back from one of the commercial breaks, they're just like, what's your book coming out or what's your podcast about? And then you'd say a sentence. That's why it would be very ideal for me. Because I would just love to have the crossover of like my absolute obsession with Bravo, but like promoting something we're like busting our ass to do at the same time. Or just like
you never know. Maybe Andy Cohen will be calling you after this episode and telling you to come on.
I highly, highly doubt it. But no, but like that, or you know, I would love to go on another podcast or something too, and just like have fun banter with other people that talk about similar stuff we do, or just anything.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But all right, thank you guys so much. Don't forget to submit your story for 6 shocking stories. So that's stories@motherknowsdeath.com. That email is also in the description of every episode, so you could easily find it. And we're looking forward to reading your submissions and seeing you guys next week.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to do that next week unless we have another crazy weekend
Oh my God.
with news stories, but hopefully things will chill out a little bit. And
I know. How many stories did you delete for today? Probably 10, right?
yeah, a lot. But there's just it was just a crazy news week. It's just going to happen sometimes. So,
Yeah.
all right, cool. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.